Hey guys, welcome back to another Wuthering Waves video, and today we're going to be doing a tier list for all the characters that are available so far up until version 2.1. I am joined by Mr. Sweat, who is part of Prydwen. He's working with the team that's in charge of making the Prydwen tier list, and yeah, he's also a good friend of mine, so he's going to be here to make sure I don't say anything politically incorrect. Yes.
Yeah, hi. Vars holds me hostage. Please help.
Yes, if he blinks twice, think nothing of it. Anyways. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we have the tiers over here. I could just be boring and, put like S tier, A, B, C, and D tier, but I felt like people will just look at that and then not get any surrounding context on it, so I'm like, alright, you know what, probably be better if we just look at the tier list like this. So, the top tier here, best of the best, the meta revolves primarily around them. I don't think there's anything really much to be said. Is like these are the characters that are the most important to look into. By the way, in case you guys see any flickering on the screen, it's mostly because I'm clicking to and from the, I'm clicking to and from a different display, so just in case, I'll try to minimize the flickering, but if you do see it, then pardon me. We're going to go through each character one at a time, and we're starting with the 5 stars because that's probably what more people are interested in, although most of the 5 stars, their placements are self-explanatory. Without further ado, I think we'll begin. We're going to start with Verena. I'm going to cover the rovers down here because they have like the icons over them, but we'll start with Verena. Verena's going to stay in best of the best. We have more options now, namely in the form of Shorekeeper, but she still covers a lot of bases. I think she's still priority number 1 out of the standard 5 stars.
Yeah, so one thing Voss is not stating here, which I feel is important to mention, we're factoring in purely Tara's Versity and maybe holograms for this tier list. That said, yeah, Verena, no arguments to be made against her being top tier. She has lightning fast rotations, gives way too many buffs, fits in any team. Yeah, meta revolves around her.
Yeah, also at higher sequences, Concerto energy generation is so fast on her that she can take care of like any intro and outros that you need to take care of. So yeah, she'll be here for a while up until we get more healers that power creep the game, but considering we need 3 parties, well, technically you don't need a healer for all 3 parties, but most of the time conventionally you do need a healer for each party, so until we get like 2 more Shorekeepers who are better than both of them combined, she'll stay there for a while. Next character is going to be Encore. Encore is going to be in this tier, very worthwhile unit. She's gotten some interesting developments throughout the years, or not the year, it's just 1 year. But ever since she began, she was kind of oscillating between here, but she would get a couple indirect buffs here and there with like Changli and then later on with Brant, alongside the new Nightmare Echoes that came out with her, but I think overall should be sitting comfortably here.
Yep, not much to be said.
People do talk about how like some people say that she's hard to play, other people say that that's a flat out lie. I'm kind of in the middle where it depends on what you want to do with her, but overall I don't think she's actually that difficult to play mechanically.
Well, one thing that's very important to keep in mind, right, is Encore is almost certainly tied to Sanhua. And I mean, if you want to play her with other characters, that's fine. She just won't perform at her best. That being said, you play her with Sanhua, it's one of the most straightforward teams in the game. And mostly what people are thinking of when they say she's hard to play, they're probably thinking of playing her alongside Changli, which I completely understand. But if you look at it from the perspective of how most people are going to use her, right, I would say Encore is fundamentally not that difficult. It just depends on your perspective, really.
Pretty much.
How you're using her specifically. But yeah.
And in terms of out of the damage dealers from the standard character list, she's definitely the best. So
yeah, no doubt.
Speaking of which, we got Mr. Calculator over here. I'm going to put Calculator over in viable options if you like better alternatives. Technically speaking, Cucumber did get buffed a little bit in version 2 with the new, I forget if it was Thundering Mephis. I'm pretty sure it was Thundering.
Thundering Mephis.
Yeah, Nightmare Thundering Mephis. But just overall, these are buffs that if it were to affect him, it was going to affect multiple people on a broader scale, and so though his position does move up a bit, so does everyone else's, in making it in relativity not that great for him. I just think that his rotations are a little too unforgiving, and we're progressively getting more characters that are more forgiving with their rotations who can output a far higher ceiling. So he's not, he's not unusable, hence why he's in that tier, but there are just more options now, and there will progressively get more options that have all the quality of life things that he doesn't have. Not even beyond like Shangli Yao, but just other characters.
You're getting ahead of yourself with that one. Yeah,
the issue
with Calcharo is, Calculator, my bad, is he has a character who directly paracreeps him, which I think is the only example that we have in this game so far of a character filling the exact same niche, being an Electro Liberation main DPS. We'll get into Zhengli Yao later, but that's a big con.
Pretty much, yeah. That's basically is that we have someone who, you know, they always say like, oh, you can't really compare this character with that character. There's like a nuance or difference in niche. No, these two are literally the exact same. Just one is better, which is a very big problem for him. We have Jianxin. Jianxin is going to be inviolable as well. She is usable. She is usable. If not for nothing else for her outro skill or her grouping, she is usable. But there's just so much wrong with her that, like, I'm so sad with this character. She could have been so good.
She has some niche usages. I don't know if you've ever seen the Jinxi Mortefi Jianxin comp. It's not like a good team comp, but it exists. It's a niche use for her. It's not like she's completely dead because she can proc Mortefi coordinated attacks very efficiently with a Forte circuit, which is a niche use. Outside of that, is she really optimal anywhere? Even in that team, no, it's not Jinxi's best pick. That said, she is usable. So, not completely dead. She has that going for her.
But she probably is on the tipping edge of becoming dead at a certain point.
Unfortunately for her.
If almost like the majority of her concerto was not dependent on a full Forte circuit channel, she'd be a lot better, because if you can swap her really quickly or get through her intro skill, or rather get to her outro skill quickly, then she could be more usable as in like quick swap teams just to get her vortex out and get the hell out. But most of the time you end up burning so much field time just to get her concerto built up that when you swap out, you essentially exhausted whatever buff you had from like Verina or Shorekeeper or any of your healers who provide a team-wide buff, because you have to spend like, what, 10-15 seconds on this character?
10-15, that's a bit rough. That's being a bit harsh. She needs like 8, which is still a ton, but like one trend you're gonna notice with a lot of the bottom tier supports we're gonna have, they all take up a lot of time, and it's always their main weakness, and Jianxin is no exception. Unfortunately, she falls victim to that.
Yeah. Okay, next character is gonna be...
Alright, speaking of dead characters, here we go.
Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna let you take care of this one.
Sure. So Ling Yang's problem. He takes a ton of heal time. He's a main DPS, no doubt in my mind. Here's the issue. He takes ages to get his damage out, and his damage out is like comparable to that of the average sub DPS. It's so sad. Kuro just has messed up this character's multipliers in many ways. They tried to give him buffs, it still wasn't enough, in the form of notably Frosty Resolve, which barely helped. Zhezhi does help, just like she helps other characters more. Ling Yang has so many flaws. He just takes too much heal time, doesn't do enough damage, and when you're looking at the main DPS angle, that's not the kind of character you're looking for.
Exactly, it's like you can only ever play him as someone who demands a lot of field time, and if the reward you get from it is almost potentially getting out, like beaten out by sub DPS characters, then yeah, there's a bit of an issue there.
For sure.
On a different note, a character that's actually been standing the test of time very well, I'd say, is Jiyan. He's going to be up here. Despite being the first featured character in Wuthering Waves, still remains to be a very good one, because not counting the fact that he's the only win character at the moment, the only arrow, he's just a really solid and comfortable character with a simple game plan, accessible teammates, and once he gets going, he has a decent amount of AoE to essentially clear even AoE floors on his own or AoE spots, and then he goes and takes on the main boss. There's a decent amount of uptime, could have a little bit more even if you charge it all the way up to full, but he just plays pretty well and pretty consistently. I don't think there's any main issues with him. And he also did get buffed a bit with the Summon Monkey, but people have argued that Transform Monkey might still be better or more practical.
Yeah, the thing is, Jiyan's only weakness, his only one, to be honest, is sometimes he can struggle with energy regen. There are techniques to compensate for that. You do have the double intro tech, and you can just run the base monkey, as you said, for the extra energy there too. But it is his one flaw. Sometimes it can make his rotations clunky. I would say that's really his only problem. Other than that, he has the damage, he has the AoE, he has the grouping, he's kind of all in one. He uses the 4th-star character very well in the form of Mortefi. So overall, very, very strong character.
Yep, can't complain. Yinlin we're going to be putting also in high tier. I initially was thinking about putting her in top tier, but the thing is, while Yinlin does have quite a few teams that she can be played in, it's hard to say whether or not she is a necessity in the current meta, because this tier specifically says the meta revolves around them, but you could theoretically go without her and still function perfectly fine. Like if we look at all the best teams at the moment, we have Carlotta as one, we have Camellya as one, and then we have Jinxi as one. Yinlin can, the only of the three, Jinxi is about the only one that you can put Yinlin in, but even then, Zhezhi is best in slot for Jinxi. So Yinlin is ultimately replaceable or non-essential, but whenever you do have her, she's certainly far from being a bad choice.
Yep, pretty much said everything there. Nothing else to add.
Alright, so, oh, actually one more thing. Yes, she did get buffed with the Empyrean set.
Oh yeah, true.
So she's still good, but just from a role perspective, or applicably speaking, yeah, it's kind of hard to move her up here, because that would imply that you need to have her, and you technically don't. Jinxi, on the other hand, okay, so this is a tough one, because she main DPS characters, and as you guys know my channel, I typically don't put main DPS characters or too many of them up here, since the whole point of them is that you can use, like, you know, if the character roster is balanced enough, there should be multiple options for you to choose from. In which case, it's hard for me to say if I want to technically put her here, because she still is in the top 3 on all the best characters or the best attackers in the game at the moment, and you do need 3 parties. So with that in mind, I would want to put her here. But what do you think, Swan?
I get that you want to value probably supports like Verena, who have way more universal use in an infinite number of teams. Here's the thing, Jinxi kind of just doesn't need the premium teammates to work. You can put her with, for example, Yuan who's given completely for free. You can give her Verena. She's gonna clear the content way too easily. She's super comfortable to play, even for the most casual players out there. Brain dead Jinxi gameplay is the optimal Jinxi gameplay.
Pretty much.
Not quite, but you get close enough. It's fair to say you have her on your account, you're in a very good position.
It's a good point to make. Next one's gonna be Changli. Changli is, okay, so Sweat and the rest of my Dear Crafter friends in WuWa have been pretty divided on where she actually would be, because I am inclined to put her here. I don't know if it was you, Slut, or if it was Bidex, but one of you guys put her here.
Probably Bidex.
Okay.
I would put her here, personally.
I'm putting Changli here, where she has some usability, and especially with Brant on the way. She can work for much higher skill teams or higher skill players, because if you can master her quick swapping, she theoretically does more party-wide contribution in terms of damage than most instances where you would bring, like, let's say, Sanhua, I believe. For example, you could put, there's like a super really niche or like really difficult team rotation that I think you could do a Phoebe and Changli instead of Phoebe and Sanhua. Or you can also do the same thing for Shangliao and Changli as opposed to Shangliao and Yinlin. So she's in a weird spot where she's a character that you need to really squeeze out as much as you can in optimization or in terms of your mechanics. But if you do, then you get slightly better than optimal teams.
Yeah, that's the main thing with Changli is if you are like a quick swap demon, as I like to call them, she's gonna be one of the most valuable pulls that you could possibly imagine. She's slots with any main DPS. You just go ahead, put like Carlotta, Jinxi, Phoebe, pretty much anybody with Changli, and then you run them together in a dual DPS team comp. She's going to slot anywhere and deal insane amounts of damage in very, very short burst windows. And she even got buffed recently too with the Nightmare Inferno Rider too, which is very cool. Pretty much, you're a quick swap demon, she has a ton of swap cancel windows, you're going to love her. Even then, let's assume you toss all of that aside, which granted is a lot of her value, she's getting Brant, thank God. And Brant is making her hyper carry playstyle, let's say you don't quick swap with her at all, via his outro, you can actually buff her to where she does actually pretty solid damage, enough to land her in this tier. That's why I think she goes here pretty comfortably, actually.
Yeah, the fusion category is interesting because they keep getting indirectly buffed in a number of ways. First with Encore, now with Changli, it's so interesting. But I think, yeah, we'll put her here for now. Let's just assume if we're considering, like, if you do have Changli and if you are thinking about playing her, that you are looking into getting better at quick swapping. So we'll put her here for now. Shangliao is going to be in A tier. One particular reason being that he is free. So, like, wait, is he free no matter what? Is he like timeless, or is he free just for the event?
He was.
Was.
He was free. Yeah.
Well, let's just
Anymore.
assume most players have him. So that alone already contributes a decent amount of value. It's like, you don't have to go out of your way to get him. But he is still, first and foremost, the best electro attacker in the game. And he still maintains competition with, like, I would say roughly around like Jiyan level in terms of performance. He's not going to be able to contest the big babies at the top. But still, you can't really go wrong with him. You could build him really nicely with a number of different attackers or a number of different teammates. Yeah, like Changli, we mentioned earlier. We have Yinlin. I believe there's one more. Who was it again? There's a 4-star.
Zhengli, Yangyang?
Oh, no, not 4-star. It was Jianxin, rather. You could. It's like really scuffed, but you could.
Yeah, also Zhengli got buffs in 2.0, Nightmare Thundering Methods, all that stuff. These we were talking about when saying he completely power crept Calcharo because, Calculator, I keep messing it up. Calculator's main issue, his damage is extremely inconsistent. Zhengli is the complete opposite. You just activate his ultimate, you do his skill when you have it, his basic attacks when you have it, and you're done. You can just swap out after that, after you've done it enough times. He's the most straightforward character, probably, like the most straightforward main DPS that we have. Honestly, in terms of like how to play him, like in his hyper carry play style optimally, I would say he's the most straightforward by far. You can play him with Yinlin, he's going to perform very well. Like you said, he has other teams. He can even be played quick swap. He's great at quick swap too. If you want to start him with Changli, he's very flexible as a result and super straightforward to play. To me, it's very clearly a high tier character, like no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, his ease of use is what really separates him from Cucumber, even though they're not really like, that's pretty much it.
They fill the same niche. They're main DPS electro liberation characters that both of them even rely on their ult. It doesn't get closer than that.
Yeah, and their ult consists of like an empowered state in which they can do crazy stuff. Basically duplication. The one downside to Changliao is that he just doesn't have that high of a ceiling.
He has a lot of quick swap potential. I wouldn't really say he doesn't have that high of a ceiling.
I suppose that's true.
He doesn't get to like top 3 levels of damage, but he does get pretty high up if you want to really master his playstyle, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Alright, Zhezhi is going to be up in top tier. She came out as a pretty good character with a lot of room for future growth, and that future growth is now here. She is best in slot for Jinxi, she is best in slot for Carlotta, she is best in slot for... There's one more. Who was it again? Or technically Lingyang, but I mean, come on. The fact that she covers 2 of the 3 best attackers in the game is already a big benefit to her, and she just generally provides a decent amount of personal damage, and she was one of the biggest beneficiaries of the Empyrean Anthem set. Assuming you don't consider the fact that while you do buffer personal damage with Empyrean, because you lose Moonlit Cloud, you lower the team's overall DPS, but it's still a net positive for her, and yeah, she's just really consistent, really good, and she actually hurts a lot if you build her.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the Empyrean. I feel like you worded that last part about Empyrean versus Moonlit a bit incorrectly. It's all a matter of investment. Basically, when you have Zhezhi on, like, say, her signature weapon, you have some very good echoes. You slot Empyrean on her, she'll perform better, and the team overall is going to perform better. If you have even just a free-to-play weapon is enough to make the difference to where Moonlit contributes more to the team's total damage. If you run the calculations, you get to about that. Either that or you don't have, 10 out of 10 crit substats on your echoes. He's also gonna want Moonlit Clouds. That's where the comparison, basically, that's where the line is drawn. Other than that, that means that she can be ran both at high investments to a great success, and at low investments too. If you just want to start her Moonlit Clouds, like even with +0 echoes, she's going to perform. Her rotation is super fast. She gives energy regen also to whoever she outros into. She has some tech that if you want to learn, you can even jump cancel with her and go a bit crazy. She buffs 2 of the 3 best DPSs in the game, as you said. Yeah, top tier character, hands down.
I would also say that, I don't know how much this actually matters, but especially in like hologram, her ability to just reposition instantly can be super helpful in just dodging key attacks. Or even the fact that she can fly or she can attack or suspend herself in the air for a long time. At least for me, it's super helpful in dealing with any bosses with earthquakes like the monkey. So I like that about her.
Yeah, there's that. You can just teleport away from any attacks by just pressing her skill once. She's super comfortable for holograms as well.
Shorekeeper is going to be here quite possibly, if we think about like maybe circumstance. She might actually just be the number 1 in Wuthering Waves, because she, people are saying, oh, they're interchangeable, Verina, Shorekeeper. Not necessarily. It's like, I think Shorekeeper just has so much more room for upside. And the fact that we've been getting so many hyper carry based attackers who need a decent amount of field time to do their damage, or not necessarily need a lot of field time, but a lot of them very much benefit from having maxed out crit breakpoint. So for her, just the fact that she can increase your team's crit rate and still provide the same array of buffs that Verina can do, along with the fact that she gives dodge forgiveness, which can help you not get wombo comboed by certain bosses, because bosses, especially in hologram, they like to chain stun you or chain stagger you and beat you down. So she just does so much and is still very easy to play. I wouldn't say her concerto generation's as fast as Verina without sequences, but even at base, you can still get it pretty nicely.
Yeah, in terms of concerto generation, it's nowhere near. Verina's too fast. Shorekeeper's gonna take like maybe 1.5 times, 2 times the field time. Here's the thing, she buffs so much to your crit stat. She gives 12.5% crit rate, 25% crit damage. Verina's base buff, she also gives them. She even has some personal damage of her own with her enhanced intro. She has everything she wants to be, a top meta character. There's no debate to be made that she's probably the most valuable character that you can pull on your account, period. She even has death resist for holograms. She's gonna give like half of her HP to any character who dies. So you even have a death resist. Verina also has that mechanic, which is very helpful. But yeah, overall, the most valuable character to pull on any account, I'm pretty sure, is Shorekeeper. Like, I don't know how you can argue against that.
Oh yeah, without question. I also do think that there's one slight disadvantage that people probably don't talk about too much with Verina, is that she's an attack scaling healer, which makes her squishier, ironically, than Shorekeeper. Like, Shorekeeper can face tank hologram level 90 bosses, or even level 100. I mean, you shouldn't try it, you should still dodge or parry as much as you can, but if in the event it happens, then yeah, she doesn't get one-tapped. So yeah, it's really hard to just argue. I wish we had 2 Shorekeepers. That's what it boils down to.
Oh, and one thing that people don't mention often when talking about Shorekeeper, she actually has grouping on her third basic and on her forte.
That's true. That's very true.
That's also, so she's also useful for AoE. Verina doesn't have that extra utility.
Oh, and also one more thing, Verina, her intro, when she intros in, she pops herself up in the air, which is annoying because her rectifier aerial attacks keep her suspended in the air, which is so annoying. Like, because you can't use her skill or anything.
The optimal playstyle with Verina is just to not intro into her, which is very ironic.
Pretty much, because she, unlike other characters who can use their liberation stuff in the air, Verina can't. So she's just kind of a little bit more clunky to play. That's not to say she's not a good character, it's just that the debate between Shorekeeper and Verina no longer exists anymore. Shorekeeper's just better.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Camellya's gonna be up here. Now, despite being a more AoE-centric character, and also, in my personal opinion, not the most hologram-friendly, depending on what boss it is, because some bosses just don't have very big windows to get parried, she still is, I would say, definitely top 3 in terms of like the 3 best characters in the game for damage. She has very, very generous number of teammates that can run as a secondary because of the fact that we have multiple Havoc support characters, including the fact that we have now a Havoc Echo support set for her. She does so much damage, she's pretty consistent. Her field time is slightly high and not necessarily in the most productive sense, I would say. However, if you do perform the full rotation and that you can just get your damage out, she does, oh my goodness, like her Forte Circuit attack is potentially even stronger than Jinxi's Forte attack, which is crazy to say.
Depends. It really depends. If you have her sequence 2, sure. If you take both at S0, Jinxi's gonna perform more. You got a bit ahead of yourself saying Camellya's top 3 she used to be. There's a new character that came in 2.1 though that's been outdoing her. Just outperforming her simply. We're gonna get into her a bit later. I see you're teasing. But yeah, Camellya even got Nightmare Crownless in 2.0. She got Midnight Veil for her supports too. So she got buffed on her personal side, on the side of her support. She even got Roach as a premium support. We're gonna get into her in a very short bit. Camellya's main problem, I would say, compared to the other 3, She struggles more in holograms. If you use her red spin mode, she's a sitting duck.
Yeah, you gotta just hope she auto parries because
yeah,
you die.
in a white spin mode, she's okay, but if you're like actually spinning with her, you're still gonna be stuck in the air. Dodging is gonna be difficult as a result. So she's definitely clunkier for holograms. Just take Tower of Adversity though, she's amazing. She does have some very minor inconsistency problems because her Concerto generation and the consumption of her Forte stacks is very reliant on her being able to hit all of your attacks, not just a part of it. But honestly, that's an issue that can be circumvented. I wouldn't say it's too problematic. If you take her damage at face value, she is way up there, way above every other DPS that's below her on this tier list. So yeah, no doubt in my mind. Honestly, she's a top tier character.
Oh, hands down. I do think, yeah, like you brought up a good point about how like the Concerto generation is designed so that it only fully caps if you run through the whole rotation. But knowing circumstantially, it's not easy to do that like on a constant basis. If they made it a little bit more friendly to where like you could get full Concerto with only 75% of her Forte, then maybe that might be a little bit better. But yeah, I do think that probably the most annoying thing about her is it's hard to move with her. And like it's hard to move around. And in holograms especially, you have to move all the time. So I'd say that kind of holds it back a bit, but it's such a non-issue in respect to like everything else. Speaking of a character though, who is quite possibly the most brain-dead hologram killer of all time. We have Carlotta. Okay, so Carlotta, she is much more single target oriented compared to Camellya and Jinhsi, who can do a little bit more on the AoE side. However, if there's ever a character who is designed to just on bosses and singular targets, it would be her. She has an easy freeze frame on her skill, which can stun enemies, which is like super valuable. But on top of that, just the fact that she condenses so much damage into a single target, and one of her main sources of damage enables her to reposition while shooting, it's just insane. And her damage ceiling is incontestably the highest against a single target.
Yeah, exactly. You said that. I'll put it as bluntly as I possibly can. Carlotta has the single highest DPS in the game against a single target, and it's not even close. It's actually really funny.
Isn't it like just a full like 500,000 above everybody else?
500,000? Not quite, because now we have Phoebe, who we're gonna tackle soon.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, compared to Jinhsi, I think, yeah, the difference gets to about that much. She's stupidly good. It's just, it is like that. Nothing else to be said. She has broken multipliers in every way. You put her along with Zhezhi, she amplifies her damage by literally unholy amounts. She even has other of the more budget options if you really want to use them. Like, for example, if you go on the 4-star side, you have the free Sanhua and Yangyang. You can use her with both. She's going to perform still very, very well because her damage like floor is just stupid. For holograms, she's by far the most comfortable character. She can even teleport the enemies up in the air with her second skill. She can stun them with the first one. Like you said, she can reposition. She can also attack from extremely far away. She's a pistol character, so...
Oh, that's true. She's got range.
Yeah, so her range is the highest of any other character, actually. So against bosses, especially holograms, you want to be at a distance so the bosses can't hurt you. She is by far the best for that.
Definitely. Okay, Roxha. Roxha is an interesting character, very strange. Now, remember, just as a reminder, we're covering this purely from the perspective of Tower of Adversity and Tactical Hologram. There is Whimpering Waves, which requires a completely different tier list in all honesty, but in light of what I have mentioned in my video on her, and even though, yes, she did technically receive some noteworthy attention because of Whimpering Waves, we're looking at this from Tower and Hologram. I'm gonna put her in mid-tier. Just the main problem is that she's not the only one. She's not the only fish in her pond. And she's not even that much bigger than the other fish in her pond. So cost effectiveness wise, despite being the best Havoc support in the game and definitively being Camellya's best partner, it's just not by so much that it warrants going out of your way for. I think the main thing that comes from that is that despite having a really good grouping capability and also doing pretty decent damage on her own and even contributing a bit of attack buffs for the party, it's just not that much.
Yeah, I mean, Russia just has a lot of problems. First of all, your ranking in mid-tier makes complete total sense if we're looking at this from the perspective that you're not getting every limited character's signature weapon. If you take Roche's value with her signature weapon, first of all, it gives crit rate, or even Zhengliao's, but that's like a limited weapon, so I see that's essentially the same level of investment. First of all, those two give crit rate. She needs to get 70% crit rate to get her max attack buff to your whole team. That's something that's very difficult to work towards unless you have the Battle Pass 4-star weapon or you have the limited 5-star options. So free-to-play friendliness, not quite there. She's also extremely competitive to Sanhua on the 4-star spectrum because her thing is to buff Havoc and basic attack damage. Sanhua covers the basic attack damage department already, and I mean, this is not even a spoiler to anyone watching. She's one of the best characters in the game. Naturally, being pretty much not quite living in the shadows because she's a tiny bit better, but kinda on the verge of living in the shadow of one of the best free characters in the game is, of course, contributing a lot to this ranking, no doubt in my mind. And then, of course, she does buff Havoc damage. Even then, on that spectrum, you have Dongjin on the 4-star side of things, who's also very strong. She's a character that, unfortunately, fills a niche that was already filled. And for limited 5-star, it's difficult to justify pulling for a character whose role is already filled. I think that's probably her main issue, that and the fact that she has free-to-play friendliness. Of course, this is all under the assumption we're grading this based on Tower Adversity holograms. That's almost exclusively single target content. Roche's main strength is, of course, AoE content. In that case, if you're looking at the new game mode, which this tier list is not doing, she would be top tier. Here's the issue. We're not grading based on that. Just looking at Tower, just looking at holograms, she unfortunately is very comparable to, honestly, free options. And that's her biggest problem, I would say.
Yeah, I think if she had a bit more presence off-field, or when she swapped out, that would be a little bit more up her alley, but pretty much just the fact that she, like you mentioned, Sweat, she's in a niche that has been filled twice already.
Yeah.
So it's exactly. Like if she was, let's say, an arrow support, like an arrow character who did the same stuff of her arrow, then maybe she could be a lot more valuable with Jiyan. But even then, it's like Jiyan is a high tier character, so it's like investing. She does invest into a top tier character, and of the options we have, she has the highest room for vertical investment because while these characters cap out pretty quickly, Rocha can go higher. But if you have to justify getting a character signature weapon, then multiple sequences before they finally start pushing noticeably apart from the other ones, then yeah, it's just hard to really say. Plus, this tier specifically mentions good in a specific scenario, and Rocha is nothing if not specific. She is just for one character, basically. Well,
Havoc Rover, she has two.
Oh, that's right, yeah. There's Havoc Rover, yeah. Okay, so I'm actually going to cover Phoebe first because she came out first. Phoebe is going to be in top tier. And I say that because, first of all, in the state that she's in right now, in the current state of the meta, Phoebe is an excellent character, specifically because her party is, while it doesn't have as high of a ceiling as Carlotta, if you play it correctly, I would argue that Phoebe's actually a lot more forgiving to play, which is funny because Carlotta's already pretty forgiving to play. Both of them share the 2-second freeze, which is just super helpful against hologram. And Phoebe has much more quick swap usability because you can switch into and out of her. She can still maintain her state for essentially indefinitely until you exhaust all of her resources or all of her forte. And she has just like different options that you can use her for, especially in the future, because while we're mostly rating her based on Absolution, she still has Confession. And if we do get a character, another Spectral DPS who works on Spectral Frazzle, then that will just propel her value even further. But there's one more thing, is that she essentially does not need, or she's like really good for party slot efficiency because one of her best characters happens to be someone who can actually double as a healer as well. So I think that Phoebe is potentially, of all the 5-star characters, the most free-to-play accessible because you have a party in her, Spectral Rover, and then either Verena or Sanhua, depending on if you want a more dedicated healer or if you want a bit more damage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's that. You also forget that there's a free event weapon that's currently obtainable for the next,
Ocean's Gift.
40 days. Yeah, Ocean's Gift. It's actually comparable in damage to the standard 5-star option, which is amazing. You can obtain it for absolutely free, all its refinements too, so the weapon can be maxed out for absolutely free, and it's comparable in damage to a 5-star. Like, hello? But yeah, there's your other top 3 DPS that we were mentioning. Pretty much the holy trinity of damage in this game right now: Kalata, Phoebe, Jinxi, and there you have it. Jinxi, even purely in single target damage, gets close to Kalata. She doesn't get there, she gets close if you value her at like her full potential. Like you said, she has a lot of tech, a lot of room for improvement. You have a lot of swap cancel friendliness if you want to optimize. She has a ton of team options, even though she's restricted to, unfortunately, Spectral Rover, which is probably her one only flaw. She's viable in both AoE and single targets. She has a lot of grouping potential as well. She has a lot of range too. If we're talking about holograms, she actually probably has the second highest range in the game after Kalada. So she's also super comfortable for holograms too. She can even teleport. Lots of things going for this character. Overall, like I said, top 3. Probably I would say top 2 above Jinxi even.
Oh yeah, she has much more room for upside. We haven't even seen the full potential of her yet because again, we're only looking mostly at Absolution. Confession has merit, but considering the only person who can wield Confession is Spectral Rover, if we do get a better Spectral attacker, then Phoebe has now room to be a hyper carry herself or a secondary, making her probably the most party agnostic character in the game at that point.
Yep, no doubt.
Okay, now Brant, I'm gonna be fully honest, I have not looked into him too much at the time of recording this video, so I'm gonna leave it to Sweat. Where do you want to put him?
Alright, so Brant has quite a few complications, unfortunately. There are a lot of videos that have been going around about how he's difficult to build, about how he has a lot of, inherent problems to his kit. Pretty much what it boils down to. His signature weapon is highly likely. I don't think we know yet. I haven't kept up, but from what I know, it's very likely that it's going to give energy recharge because the entirety of his kit is based around him reaching a high level of energy regen. You can probably throw him in high tier, by the way, just for reference. But that's if and only if we're grading based on him having a signature weapon. If his signature weapon is comparable to that of Shorekeeper's in the sense that it gives like 70% plus energy regen, he'll be pretty easy to build. But reaching 280% energy regen on the character with a 4-star or 5-star weapon, unless it's something like Shorekeeper's stat-wise, that's very, very difficult to reach. So there's that. Then he also is going to want to do damage. So as a result, you're going to want to build crits on him, and that makes his build even more difficult to access. And on top of this, he also shields, he also heals others depending on his energy regen. It's gonna make him difficult to build if you don't have his signature. So my advice personally, getting a bit ahead of things, but it's likely that if you're not gonna pull Brant's signature weapon, you probably don't pull him altogether unless you really like him, of course. But yeah, a lot of his value is going to be dependent on that, unfortunately. So it's all a matter of do you have the resources required to pull a 5-star limited weapon along with a 5-star limited character or not? There's that, and there's the fact that his outro skill, buff fusion and skill damage, which is great for one character that we've already covered, who's Changli. Here's the issue. Changli, like we said, very, very quick swap friendly character, has a ton of swap cancel windows. Brant's outro expires upon swapping. So if you want to play them together, you actually have a lot of trouble quick swapping. It's possible, just very difficult. If you want to, capitalize on the buffs, not lose them, you essentially, what you'd have to do is get all of Changli's inflamement stats up, get her big nukes ready, and then outro from Brant to buff her big nuke. and like that's very complicated. Realistically, you're not doing that. So the two are kind of anti-synergistic, which is not something I see people mention a lot, despite that being his intended use. So he's in an awkward position, but if you can manage to work around his weaknesses, if you assume he has a signature weapon to carry his energy regen requirements that are a bit too big, then he's probably high tier, I would say. Because he has a lot of potential from the kit that we can see in game right now, actually. But yeah, other than that, I would say you don't have his signature weapon. He probably can pass the Rocha utility to your account. If you do, he's high tier. That's where I'd rank him.
Okay. Yeah, I do think it's weird that he can heal the party while at the same time not being a character appropriate for being your dedicated healer. It's so weird.
Generally, what Shoutouts does with like generally supports like Shorekeeper or Verena, those characters have buffs that don't expire when you swap out, and they're way more generalist. They can apply to any team comp. Brant is specialized, so he works more as like a sub DPS, especially since he wants to be built for damage.
Exactly.
But then he also shields and heals. It's like he's trying to do everything. He can do everything pretty well, but that also makes him have an awkward position in the meta at the same time. It's a bit weird how Akira designed this character.
I do think he's probably a character that will take a while before like we actually see what he can really do. I think he definitely has like potential. That's the fusion category as a whole, honestly, just the 3 fusion characters. Even Changli, for example, she technically still does not have a perfect party. It's like it's gonna take a bit. We need a bit more fusion expansion, but up until that point, Brant is like the most cautious answer. I think probably might put him in A tier. Okay, so we covered all the 5 stars and we did cover them at fairly decent length. Fortunately, the 4 stars we don't have to spend as much time on because they're much more cut and dry. Let's go into Danjin. Danjin's going to be in mid tier. She's got a lot of different teams you can use her. You can technically play her as the main DPS if you want. You're not going to get the same results as them, but you can. And she has 2 characters that she can synergize with, Havoc Rover and Camellya. So she has options, much more of a budget type character, and she is in a specific niche in that regard. So I don't think she can really go much higher than this.
Like, I mean, nothing much to be said. Like you said, 4-star characters tend to be way more straightforward. It will be very difficult for me to disagree with any of the placements that are about to come up next. Or even give additional insight. The thing is, generally, you're going to observe with 4-star characters, they're way more straightforward. So honestly, we're going to be breezing for the next few. All right.
Gotcha. Alto, bottom tier. He is, his only option is really to just be paired up with Jiyan, but even then there's just, there's Mortefi, who's just every bit as superior, and I don't think he'll even get much better with another arrow attacker because chances are other characters will come out who can power creep him pretty significantly.
It's ironic because his sequence 3 actually makes him somewhat usable as a main DPS character. Like if you pair him with Sanhua, for example, to buff his basic attack damage, and you really want to hone in on that, and he actually performs comparably to Yangyang, so he's not like terrible as a main DPS. I guess that's one other use he has. Does it make him good? No, but he has that at least.
Wow, that's a sick burn to Yangyang. Okay, Zhezhi got buffed actually a decent amount because first of all, she has a 5-star weapon in the form of Carlotta's that she can use, and she also got some buffs from the new Nightmare Echoes, but she's still kind of not really there. She's in a pretty stacked lineup, not really stacked in terms of like high performance, but she's got there's just a lot of other this is not Genshin, pardon me, fusion attackers, excuse me. She's got a lot, so I think, you could use her. She's not as bad as these two, but I don't think, she can't really get much higher than this. Yeah,
she has solid-ish damage if you want to use her with, like, Changli. One thing we forgot to mention, actually, is that Changli also has a buffing outro. Right, has one. I don't understand how the two are supposed to work together, but I guess they do. Typically, DPS characters are going to have damaging outros. That's the case for Zhezhi, and Changli actually has a buffing outro. So the two actually end up working pretty decently together. It's not like top tier damage, but it's definitely at a stage where it's like very usable. So she doesn't end up being terrible, just not that good.
Yeah, like if you don't have Encore or Brant or any other character that Changli would want to pair up with, which is honestly a lot of them, then yes, you can use Chisha. There is merit to using her. Talchi. Talchi is going to be bottom tier. She is the, if we are being specific with this, she does have a party that can find somewhat decent usage in the form of Carlotta, because she is skill damage, if I remember correctly. Wait, she's skill damage?
Yeah.
It is skill damage, yeah. But just the character itself, like, you're essentially playing her just for an outro skill, which, to be fair, a lot of characters are used for the outro skill, but the fact that she does essentially nothing outside of that is what's really holding her back right now.
Yeah, I mean, her main issue is just rotation time, to be honest. We're running into those kinds of supports who do have pretty beefy buffs. They just take hours to get them. Talchi is one of those. That's why she's bottom tier, unfortunately. Because skill damage, as you can see with, for example, Zhezhi, who also buffs skill damage, is a very desirable niche to fill, especially as a 4-star. We don't have really good 4-star resonant skill buffers. Talchi takes ages to get there, so team DPS wise, it's abysmal. She's been a meme for a pretty long while, unfortunately. But hey, she does have merit with Carlotta, because Carlotta is so strong that if you just buff her, even if you take ages to do it, you're gonna do damage that clears the end game super easily. Value wise, though, not too worth it.
Yeah, Mortefi's gonna be the first 4-star in high tier. He is in a weird position where technically there's only one team that he's number 1 in, which is Jiyan. However, there is a lot of room that you can use him in, and he's still a very competent follow-up attacker. For even like if you want to, you could also technically pair him up as a secondary for Phoebe, if in the event you're busy using Sanhua for someone else. So Mortefi's got, he's one of the better 4-stars in the game, and this is even in spite of there not being a proper like number of options for him. Like if there was like a top tier heavy attacker, then he would see a lot more use. A top tier heavy hyper carry attacker specifically.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Mortefi just has good damage. He has great buffs for Jiyan, has great buffs for Phoebe too, if you want to pair them up together. He buffs two very, very solid characters very effectively. In that regard, I suppose you could consider him comparable to Zhezhi, but where Mortefi falls a bit short is he has slightly less personal damage, he has slightly higher rotation times, he buffs slightly worse characters, so he ends up in a close position, just slightly lower.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, like both of them have two really good characters. Both of them are like very solid for two parties, but Zhezhi is just a little bit better, or like fairly better in almost every aspect. But that doesn't mean Mortefi. If you're like let's say 80% as good as like one of the best characters in the game, then you're still a really good character.
Exactly.
Yuan, on the other hand, is going to be in low tier. He is, people were feeling pretty optimistic about him when Jinxi came out because he's got coordinated attacks to build up her forte. However, it is another case of just the character himself being really underwhelming, that you're only using his utility for utility purposes. When Empyrean Anthem came out, people gave him another look because again, he is coordinated attack based. But the issue with him compared to Mortefi, compared to Zhezhi, or even Yinlin, is that his personal damage is just non-existent.
Exactly. I would have worded it the exact same way. So.
Like, 100 times 0 is still 0. Like, well, no, it's not actually 0, but it's like, he just has such low values that even if you were to amp them, you're not getting as much mileage out of it compared to someone who actually has motion values like Yinlin and Zhezhi.
Yep, exactly. I mean, as a result, Yang just ends up pretty much acting only as a Jinxi stack bot, and that's his only use. He's a viable option if you don't have the better alternatives like Yinlin, Zhezhi. That's it. That's his only use case. But hey, he's pretty good at that at least.
Yeah. Baizhi is going to be in mid tier. I actually would have put him here if not for the fact that she has gotten saving grace in the form of Carlotta. Baizhi is a healer who can do basically a discount version of what Verena can do. However, because of Carlotta, the fact that she can boost glacial damage with her S6 makes it so she surprisingly can match or outperform Verena in that respect. So even though she's a much more specific character, one of the parties that she's specific in just happens to be the best boss killing party in the game. So she might be a better choice for you to use, like in the event, let's say you want to use Verena for Jinxi, you want to use Shorekeeper for Camellya or Phoebe. Not really Phoebe, but if you want to use Shorekeeper for a different attacker, then you can use Baizhi as an emergency healer for Carlotta. And the fact that she is a healer, you know, if you don't have, let's say, if you're just starting out, then she's one of the more usable 4-stars in the game. But I think as you get more 4-star heal or more healer characters in general who can provide the same array of buffs as Farina and Shorekeeper, then Baizhi will eventually fall off. But for the time being, she's doing pretty good.
Exactly. Like, honestly, very simple character to understand. So there you go.
Alright, now speaking of a 4-star character who might as well be a 5-star character, we have Sanhua. Sanhua is essentially the when in doubt use her character. She is a character who requires no field time whatsoever or very minuscule amount of field time, and because of that, even if she's not technically super compatible outro skill wise, which is hard to say because a lot of characters use basic attacks in some capacity, she's just one of the best secondary characters to have, especially for budget teams. Like, she can be used for Camellya obviously, even though yes, we do have Roxha which provides Havoc and basic. Sanhua provides more basic attack damage, and because she's quick, she can get to Camellya quickly, and then therefore Camellya can spend more time, especially if she has like Shorekeeper and things like that. You can use Sanhua for technically Carlotta as well. Carlotta is more skill damage oriented. However, because Sanhua can provide more utility and buffing capabilities than Talqi or Lumi, she ends up actually just being better. She just does more personal things. And then of course you have her for Phoebe, who, even though Phoebe is a mixed attacker, she can do basic, heavy, skill, whatever. Phoebe still does a lot of basic attack damage, and because Sanhua's fast in terms of field time, she can also work for her. You also can use Sanhua for Encore, who does use basic attacks. You could use Sanhua for basically everything. Literally everybody, including Brant, which is kind of stupid.
I mean, Sanhua's main thing that I feel you didn't highlight enough is she is stupidly fast. It's to the level of Arena. And that alone means you're spending a ton of time on your main damage healer doing their main damage instead of spending that time on a lesser damaging support. As a result, you gain overall in your rotations a lot of speed, and since you access your main damage faster, it ends up being actually very worthwhile for team damage because of that. Because honestly, it's mostly because of the fact that she can provide she does have an attack buff on her 6th sequence. She does have the echo sets like Moonlit Clouds to give additional buffs to your party, so she's not completely dead there. But because you're spending all of that time on your main damage healer, doing the most of your team's damage in very short amounts of time, she ends up being worth it with literally anybody. That's her entire strength, her biggest one by far.
Yeah, like and I also think that Shorekeeper was the best thing to happen to her because she can get through, Shorekeeper can swap out quickly, then switch into Sanhua, who then swaps out extremely quickly. You get like a free 23 out of the 25 seconds go straight to your main attacker. She's a testament of how important field time or lack thereof is on a character. If a character takes too much field time, that hurts them so much because you have Sanhua, who even in parties where she doesn't actually contribute anything specifically synergistic, she's one of the best, if not the best party member for that team, purely because she's that fast. You just come in, skill, liberation, do the DDR, not DDR, what's the word? Whatever, do the forte attack, and then get the hell out. She just insta-maxes Concerto without even at base. It's like, well, not base as in sequences, but even at 0 Concerto, she just maxes it so quickly.
I would say the biggest example of the contrast that you said between characters who buff a lot but high field time, characters who don't buff as much, low field time, compared Sanhua to Talqi in the Carlotta team. Ironically, they're very, very comparable, and Sanhua actually ends up giving more team DPS over time, not in a single rotation, but over time, because she's just infinitely faster, and I just find that hilarious. But yeah, it's easily the best example by far how valuable field time is. And Sanhua has none of it, so she ends up being super, super, super valuable. Especially if her buffs, her specific basic attack damage buffs are wanted on the team, then she just ends up being godlike. Easily the best 4-star character that we have ever seen, and probably are going to see for quite a while, considering Kuro actually takes quite a while to put out more 4-star characters in the game. So we'll see where she goes, I suppose.
Yeah, they're not as cavalier with their character releases as other gacha games, which is good in the sense that you don't have to go crazy on like pulling for every character. Alright, Yangyang. Yangyang's going to be in mid-tier. People have been on the fence with her since the game came out. People were saying she's broken, people were saying she's bad, people were saying she's got this, and she doesn't have that. I think that Yangyang is okay. You know, she's got a couple instances where like the buffs that she provides are fairly interesting, namely the fact that she's the only one who can battery the party at the moment.
Zhezhi exists now. That's one point of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So,
right.
Yeah,
That's true.
Zhezhi also exists for energy regen, but yeah, she's the only 4-star that does that.
So yeah, it's like you could use her for like a select number of situations. I don't even know if I want to put her here. There's like a part of me that wants to put her here because she's kind of like one of those, if you have no one else, you can use her. But maybe you can convince me, Sweat.
Alright, so how to look at Yangyang? She's pretty much a mini version of Sanhua. She has slightly higher field time. If you're looking at S6 Sanhua, her sequence 5 actually shortens her rotation time by a lot. Sanhua, I mean. Yangyang has no such difference maker, but Yangyang also has like a 3 point something second rotation. I believe it's 3.3-ish. If you play her right. And that means that she also has the field time value. She's also completely quickswap friendly because her energy regen outro buff. Obviously, that's not lost upon swapping out. So if you use her with someone like, for example, Zhengli or I don't know, Changli, you're not losing any of the buff that she's providing. Other than that, she's the same as Sanhua if you exclude the 38% basic damage outro buff that Sanhua has. So she's kind of a mini version of her. She also has similar personal damage, so they end up filling a very, very similar role. Where Yangyang will shine more is the ability to be able to swap in and out of your main DPS's rotation if they have swap cancel windows, if you're trying to optimize a bit more. Other than that, for casual players, they're pretty much the exact same. Yangyang does have higher AoE potential because she has grouping in her kit, which is pretty cool. But yeah, she's good in specific scenarios, is honestly the best possible tier to describe her, I would say.
Alright, you have convinced me. Okay.
Checks out.
Youhou, I'm actually personally undecided on this at the moment because initially I put her here just because she fits the specific scenario thing quite well, but then the more I think about it, I don't think it's actually enough. So I kind of might put her here. So the one distinction that Youhou has over other healers is that she can increase coordinated attack damage. Just one problem, we don't actually have a coordinated attack main attacker right now. Every single one is a sub DPS, which, while to the credit of, let's say, Zhezhi, is non-negligible amount of damage, ultimately she is not the main attacker. And so I feel like Youhou's priorities are mixed up, and that like the other healers want to focus on buffing the main attacker, like how Baizhi wants to buff Carlotta. She does buff Zhezhi in the process, but it's mostly for Carlotta. Youhou, I feel like, is the only healer who doesn't really buff the main attacker. Not unless you go, if you want to pick someone like, let's say, if Yinlin has another party member in the future who can also do coordinated attacks and they swap between each other, then you can. So I feel like Youhou's just a case of we need a little bit more time for her.
We don't have a character that fits the bill for her, yeah. Right now, if you look at Youhou compared to Baizhi in any generalist team that has like a coordinated attacker, say for example Zhengli or Yinlin, take that example, Youhou and Baizhi are pretty much the exact same. The one thing Baizhi has is that she has universal buffs. She works in any team because she has generalist attack percent, damage percent buffs. They apply to the whole party. They'll be able to apply to anyone. Youhou buffs specifically coordinated attacks, so she's only viable in one team archetype. And currently, like you said, we don't have a coordinated attacker that deals enough damage to justify her position on the team. So they end up just performing similar in Youhou's best teams, and then Baizhi just has more flexibility and more options. So she's straight up just better right now, but I guess when we get someone who does more coordinated damage, she'll be preferable. That's currently not the case though.
And I think it's gonna be a while. I don't this might be like a 3.0 thing. I'm actually not sure. Because versions in WuWa, they compared to other gachas, WuWa's versions, they cycle through every half a year, I believe. Something
like that, yeah.
So yeah, it might be a bit, but we're not counting her out quite yet. Speaking of a character though that we're counting out literally as soon as she came out, which is funny because she was one of the newer 4-stars. Actually, she's the newest 4-star, Lumi.
Oh, the biggest meme in gacha gaming. Here we go.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. Why does her outro skill last 4 seconds shorter than every other character's outro skill? Like, she and Talchi buff resonant skill damage, but for some godforsaken reason, she busted only for 10, Talchi buffs for 14.
Ironically, Lumi buffs for 10 seconds, and she stays on the field for 10 seconds. It's hilarious. Just go ahead. Here we go. The biggest meme. Here we go. Yeah, Lumi is... She just has no reason to be used. Tauchi rotates faster. She provides buffs for longer. Lumi has some slight personal damage. It's not even enough to justify anything. This poor girl, because I love her design too, is the
She's
worst
so
part.
cute.
I love her design. I love her animations. Why, Kuro?
Yeah, she has a fun playstyle too, like the left and right thing.
Yeah.
Was like cool. But
she just takes ages. She has the longest rotation time in the game. You can't even optimize it. I hate it because I love the character.
it's just so the most
It's
forgettable
over.
character, I think, probably.
It's so over. Poor Lumi. I love her too. It's so over. Okay, let's move on to an actually good character.
Alright, Spectral Rover. Spectral Rover, I'm gonna put them in either high tier or like if there was like an in-between. I'm just gonna put them here for now. So Spectral Rover is the de facto best secondary unit for one of the best characters in the game, Phoebe. And even though there is potential for that to get changed, the one thing that I think is super satisfying with this duo is that you essentially never let the hologram boss do anything, because if you combine the slowdown on Spectral Rover with the stun on Phoebe, you get 5 seconds of free like paralysis, essentially.
Yeah, true. I mean, I would say Spectral Rover has literally only one team. I don't know if I'll convince you to lower him because he's good in a specific scenario, the same way
that's true.
Roxha would be, for example. But like, he only has one team is the thing. So I don't know. Either you can go about it from the fact that Spectral Rover is mandatory as things stand for, I think, top 2 DPS in the game right now. You can go at it from that perspective. Or you can, view it from the perspective that they are only viable in one team. It's really up to interpretation.
That's true, because this assumes that there's a lot, but at the same time...
Yeah.
Yeah.
High strength and usability, there's not much usability. It's one team. It's one character.
You know what? That's a good point. I think we'll put them there.
They're in between, though, like you said. Definitely in between. Yeah. But unfortunately, we don't have an in-between tier.
I feel like people are gonna be mad. It's gonna be the whole, why'd you put this character in the same tier as that character? I'm like, dude, it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum, goddammit. Alright, anyways, final character is going to be Havoc Rover. Havoc Rover I'm gonna be putting in a very comfortable high tier. They have a lot of options. You can use them with Roxha, you can use them with Danjin, you can use them with Sanhua, like a lot of options, and their damage has been keeping up fairly surprisingly. Especially now that we have a couple more sequences. We still need one more.
No, we have all of them now.
Oh, we have them. Okay, we have all of them. Yeah, just Rovers, first of all, they're free, right? Like, you can't go wrong with a free character. And their DPS is fairly comparable, and it's also easy to access, which it's good to say in that regard. Having a personal echo is also a little bit of favoritism on their part. Just a solid character.
Yeah, Dreamless is huge AoE damage. Their ultimate is so stacked. It's one of the highest multipliers in the game. It's insane. Havoc Rover got their Sequence 6 very, very recently, just like, was it a week or something ago? And that gives 25% free crit rate, makes them very easy to build. Even then, when they were at S5 in 2.0, they were honestly like way up there with pretty comparable to Encore damage-wise, for example, who's in high tier. Honestly, Havoc Rover is probably the one character that we have who would be like probably in between top tier and high tier, I would say, now that we have their S6. But, they're not like top 4 DPS in the game. So, like, especially for example, you take holograms into account, Havoc Rover does have some inconsistency problems. They do tend to stay in place, or they want to, not dodge to do the most of their damage.
Yeah.
And that's problematic for holograms the same way it is for Camellya. Here's the thing, Camellya has a higher damage ceiling than Havoc Rover does, especially over longer rotations. Havoc Rover's main advantage over Camellya, if you're looking at the Havoc main DPS department, is that they have higher front-loaded damage, but Camellya has higher damage over longer periods of time. So it all depends what you're trying to do. I would say, however, we're mostly looking at like 2 to maybe even 5-minute fights if you're doing holograms. 2 minutes for the tower for, a full 3-star clear. Since we're grading based on those things, Camellya would naturally rank higher over 2 full minutes of, a tower run. So Havoc Rover is pretty in between, especially now that we got their S6. Right now, though, as things currently stand, they're high tier, but very comfortably so, though. Like, if you want to invest in your Havoc Rover, you're not making a bad choice.
And it's just satisfying that they're free. It's a character everyone has. No, their description does not fit this. Like, the meta does not revolve around Havoc Rover. But it's just like, man, I love that the main character, and it's like, okay, for like, say like Honkai Star Rail, for example, like only the support for Trailblazers are good. But in WuWa, we have a DPS and a support. Well, we have a DPS and a support. So it's like, you could just, when in doubt, who's a good character, just freaking look at your main character. So I think
exactly.
And they gave them a lot of help with like a support Havoc set, a bunch of Havoc support characters, or namely just 2, or just
now they're at 6-2. They're dedicated Echo. Yeah, they have a ton of stuff to help them out. I would say very confidently, honestly, Havoc Rover is the best free main DPS in the game. So if you like options, if you like a main DPS, and you don't really know where to look, you have your option right there. Right there in front of you. Just build Havoc Rover. They're very strong.
Compared to Shangli or Encore, if you use your selector on Encore, like Havoc Rover has much more accessible party members. And yeah, so it's much easier to get your hands on them.
Encore has Sanhua, so...
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, Shangli though...
I mean, technically Havoc Rover also has Sanhua, so...
Yeah, Havoc Rover has Sanhua, they have Donjin, they have Roxha, they have a ton of options. You're always going to have a team for them.
Okay, so that is the entire tier list. Despite there not being that many characters, we want to go as in-depth as possible on them, so if you guys do not mind, but at the very least this should clear up any confusion with any character. So if you have any friends who are wondering like, what are the thoughts on certain characters, just refer them to this video. I feel like we've been pretty comprehensive about it. Thank you, by the way, Sweat, for joining me here.
You're welcome.
If you guys enjoyed this as well, having another person on board, then I can always bring Sweat again. I actually think we bounced off each other pretty well commentary-wise as well.
Yeah, I really liked this video. It was great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. But for the time being, if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at VarsFarum, and if Sweat has a Twitter, I'll have it also in the description. Join my Discord server and check out my other Wuthering Waves videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and we'll be seeing you again soon. Take care.